Today, I am going to show you a highly effective yet totally unpopular way to guarantee a chunk of your retirement income. Okay, now most of you are probably familiar with pensions, and by pensions, I am specifically referring to defined benefit pensions. Those are the fancy ones that promise a certain amount of money every month for the rest of your life. They're often referred to as golden handcuffs. Gold because guaranteed retirement income for the rest of your life is delicious. Handcuffs because you have to sell your soul to one employer for a long time in order to get them to a size where they're nice and juicy. Anyway, point is, pensions are awesome and pretty much everybody wishes they had one. Now, of course, most Canadians have CPP and OAS, and those are public pensions. Well, CPP is a pension. OAS is actually a social program, but essentially, they both equate to guaranteed retirement income. So most of us have at least some level of guaranteed retirement income coming our way. But you can have more of it if you want. You just have to pay for it. It's called an annuity. And this isn't technically true, but practically speaking, an annuity is just a private pension. Essentially, you're just buying your own pension plan. You give an insurance company a bunch of money, and in return, they promise to give you a stream of guaranteed income. Now, there are a bunch of ways that you can structure annuities, but we're not going to get into all of that. We're just going to go through two easy examples today just to help you understand the concept. But it does need to be emphasized that in both of these examples, and most annuities in general, once you buy them, your money is gone. It now belongs to the insurance company. And that's one of the reasons why these plans are somewhat unpopular. No one likes to part with their cash. But in return, the insurance company now owes you money on a regular basis for however long it says in the contract. And that can be for a specified period of time, or it can be for as long as you live. Now, hear me out. I am not suggesting that you go and buy an annuity. Not at all. I don't actually care one way or another. But these are a valid option and they are worth knowing about. And in some cases, especially cases where people are not interested in carrying investment risk, these can be a very decent idea. So to illustrate all this, I'm going to walk you through two very different scenarios. The first is Morris and Doris Norris. Now I'm going to keep this pretty high level and just get right to the point. Both Norris and Doris are a bit worried that they could run out of money in retirement. And as we can see here, the way they have things set up, they are currently tracking at 101% of their retirement income goal. So as long as everything works as we hope, they should be fine. But there's not much of a buffer here if things go sideways. Now, they both agree that there are certain expenses that they could reduce in retirement if they had to, but there are certain things that they simply do have to pay for, and it's this chunk. It's the chunk that covers their necessities that they do not want to have to worry about. Looking at their situation, we can see that they have the following sources of income. Doris has a nice little pension from work. They're both going to take CPP as soon as they retire at 61. And they're both going to get OAS as soon as possible at age 65. Now, all of these sources are guaranteed as much as anything can be, so that's great. However, the rest of their income needs will have to be met from their personal investments, and these, of course, are not guaranteed. And that's a bit much for comfort for Morris and Doris. So the first most obvious thing we want to do is look and see if there's some ways that we can increase the guaranteed sources of income that they already have, namely CPP and OAS, because the pension that she has just really isn't all that flexible. Now, you may already know this, but if you delay your CPP and OAS benefits, you actually get an increased amount for the rest of your life. But neither Morris nor Doris want to have anything to do with that. They are firm on not delaying their CPP and OAS, so that's a no-go for them. However, at the moment, they are planning to take CPP early, at age 61, which means they will be getting a reduced amount for the rest of their lives. So we agree to see what it would look like if they just held off for the normal unreduced amount that would start at age 65. And look at that. It took them from 101% on track to 105% on track of their income goal. And it very much increased the amount of guaranteed income they can count on starting at age 65. True, They will have to spend more of their own resources earlier, but it is adding a lot of stability to their situation later in life, and they like this. However, Morris and Doris did some quick math, and they feel like they would still be a lot more comfortable if they had an additional $500 per month in guaranteed income throughout their retirement. That would be enough to make sure that their necessities were always covered. So we ran some quotes and found that if they purchased a joint lifetime annuity for $150,000, that would guarantee them a stream of income of $528 a month until the last one of them pass away. And cherry on top, this monthly amount is indexed to grow by 3% a year to keep up with inflation. Now, obviously, they weren't super pumped about the idea of parting ways with $150,000, but they were pumped about the guarantees. So we added it into their plan to see what it would look like. And look at that. It drops them from 105% to 103%. And that's because they traded $150,000 of their investments that had the potential to do better than what they would get from their guaranteed income stream. But now their necessities are covered for good, and they never need to worry about it. Of course, barring some very serious world-changing drama. So that's all well and good, but here is where this strategy really shines. Let's throw a tsunami at them. Let's give them a market crash of 40% 1 year after they retire, which is pretty much the worst timing. And then let's drop their expected investment returns by 1% for the rest of their lives. Also awful. And then let's add another 1% to our long-term inflation estimate. A tsunami. That drops them from 103% on track down to 82%. Now note, the annuity did not save them. They are still going to run out of their own investments and have shortfalls from what they had wanted for the last 15 years of their retirement. They run out of their own investments in 2034. And notice that if we look at this situation without having purchased the annuity, they wouldn't run out of their own investments until 2036, an extra 2 years. But, and it's a big but, their shortfalls going forward are much deeper. In 2037, they would have a shortfall of over $46,000 for the year. But if we look at their situation with the annuity again, we can see that the shortfall is quite a bit less now. It's just over $37,000. That's $9,000 less. And it's much less every year going forward as well. And that's because they traded a chunk of their money for a lifetime stream of guaranteed income. They locked in a base amount of income. Now here's another potential perk of doing this. If they live longer, then the annuity has to keep paying them as long as they live. So if we add another 10 years to their life expectancy and see what it looks like without the annuity, we can see that they are tracking at 97% now and would run out of their investments in the last 3 years. But if we add the annuity back, they're good to go, 100% on track. However, the flip side is true as well. If they were both to pass away earlier, then they may not get as much out of the annuity as they had hoped for, and that's an actual real risk of annuities. Okay, now let's take a look at a totally different situation. This is actually a real situation, something that we just worked on for someone who saw what we do on YouTube and wanted us to make one of these plans for him. Now, he's a really cool guy, and he gave me permission to use his situation in this video, but for privacy reasons, we are going to change his name to Harry Larry. Now, Harry is retiring in the next 6 months when he's 55, and he wants to retire on a tropical island in Southeast Asia. He's got a decent chunk of money, and all of this is doable for him. And while he is comfortable with investment risk, he's just not sure how things are going to shake out over the next decade, given all the things that are going on in the world right now. And he doesn't really want to put his whole retirement plan at risk on things that he can't control. Now, his plan is to take CPP and OAS at age 65, and just those two benefits alone will make up a big chunk of what he thinks he could get by on. So what he's really concerned about is this next decade until CPP and OAS kick in, because this is the chunk he has to cover out of his own investments. And to his credit, it was actually he and not me who came up with the idea of an annuity. Good thinking, Harry. Good thinking. But in his case, he really only needs it for the next 10 years. So rather than a lifetime annuity like Morris and Doris were looking at, we looked at a 10-year annuity. After playing around with some quotes, we settled on trying out an annuity that would cost him $200,000 from his portfolio, and in turn would pay him a guaranteed $1,874 a month for the next 10 years and indexed to increase by 3% a year to keep up with inflation. Now, in this particular case, it hardly moved the needle at all for him. It only dropped the amount he was on track by 0.3%. But it dramatically reduced his risk during this period. Now, if the markets took a particularly aggressive nosedive during the next decade, he could survive almost entirely on the annuity income. Now, he'd still need a bit from his investments, but the dividends and interest would likely be enough to top him up, and he could probably get by without having to sell any or very little of his original capital. Very attractive idea. Will he actually do this? I don't know. But like I said, it is an option, and it's a valid option, and it is wise to know our options. So yes, you can guarantee a chunk of your retirement income if you want to. You just have to pay for it.